Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the Season Gaming Bitcast. This is episode 11. I'm going to be your host, Ainsley Bowden. I'm joined by Bert Sines, as usual. And today, before we get started, I just want to preface the episode and apologize a little bit because we're having some issues with our video quality. So if you're watching us on YouTube, apologize in advance for the low quality. We'll get that sorted out before our next episode airs. But today we're going to be talking about our normal content, news and developer updates, along with current releases. And our main topic today is going to be talking about games as a service. We hear that phrase a lot nowadays, and Ubisoft and Square Enix have recently commented on it as well. So we're just going to kind of touch on what that means for the industry and what we think about those topics. But otherwise, let's go ahead and jump into the news and talk about the major things that have happened over the past week and a half or so. So. Probably the biggest thing, it was last week now, sadly, but the biggest thing to kind of come out was Rockstar started teasing their next trailer for Red Dead Redemption 2. We saw that last week, and it was rather short. I was kind of hoping for it to be a little longer, but the really important news out of it, of course, is that they confirmed it's a prequel, and it looks like we're going to see a new main character. And there's some hints in there around, maybe seeing Marston towards the end. So we'll see how they tie that up in the game. But I liked it. I thought it looked really good. According to Rockstar, it was captured on a PS4. They didn't, of course, comment whether that was a PS4 Pro or a standard PS4. So that's kind of up for debate yet. But other than that, what do you think about it, Bert?
That looked awesome. As everybody's kind of talking about it, kind of was going to be kind of a shorter than we were expecting or hoping to see. I do like that they did show a tiny bit about the story. I mean, we kind of know a little bit about what's going on. I think it's been kind of funny to see a lot of the websites and even fans have kind of dissected the trailer in general to kind of find out the locations of where it'll be. And from what we're seeing and hearing, it does look like it's going to be kind of a not in one little area, but across maybe the United States. So I think it looks really cool from that point. I cannot wait. We're both big Red Dead Redemption fans, so it's going to be fantastic when it gets here. But I hope to see more. I think we'll hopefully see some stuff come out a little closer to, I don't know, maybe E3 or maybe one of those things to kind of see more gameplay and see more things develop. Because we have yet to really see gameplay. Everything's just been kind of that video. But overall, I'm super excited.
Yeah, which is kind of weird, right? Because they showed the footage that they showed in this trailer looked to be real time, like it was cutscene quality, and it looked really good. But I'm wondering when we are going to see gameplay. And with a spring release, being the term they're using right now, and I say term because who knows if it will actually release in spring. It'll be interesting to see if they do get it out. Right now, I'm hoping for something like an April or May release. But as you said, if that slips a little bit, we'll probably see a big presentation at E3, maybe Sony stage since they have the marketing deal, and then maybe a fall release. But I'm still hoping for spring right now.
Right. The other thing is that there's those weird rumors going on about why it was delayed to the spring, and I've been hearing rumors of the cross-play feature between PS4 and Xbox One. But obviously, Rockstar is really not going to comment too much on that. But it is going to be interesting to find out what they worked on that, or maybe not what they worked on, but what may have been kind of some rough edges that they didn't feel comfortable to launch it as the original date that they had talked about. So I'm very interested in that. But I'm sure that Rockstar made a good choice, and kind of delaying it to fine-tune everything was a good idea. So we'll see.
Yeah, it'll be world changing when it releases. I can almost guarantee that. That's for sure. So Star Wars Battlefront 2, one of the largest games that is coming out this fall. We've talked about it on several Bitcasts now. The beta went live earlier this week. The open beta just went live yesterday, actually. We got a few rounds in earlier this week, and I think it's pretty good. I wasn't a huge fan of the first game. I thought it was far too kind of arcadey and simple. This one seems to have a lot more depth, which I like in customization and some of the gameplay types. So we talked about it. Not too much to say about it that we haven't already said, but I'm looking forward to it. But the one thing I will comment on is playing on the standard Xbox One. You can really see the stress of the game scale on that hardware. I think standard Xbox One and PlayStation 4 players are going to get a very different experience with this game compared to, say, a PlayStation 4 Pro or Xbox One X. We've heard some rumors from some of the people close to Microsoft saying that the Battlefront 2 on the Xbox One X is really going to melt people's faces off. So we'll see what it looks like. But yeah, you can kind of see that on the standard Xbox One, how soft the edges are and blurry some of the textures are. So it'll be interesting to see the, I could see this being a showcase game for the upgraded consoles and high-end PCs.
Yeah, I specifically was very let down with just the fidelity of the game in general, and things looked kind of washed out. It was kind of a letdown. At the same time, I took it as a, hey, this is a beta, so not to be too critical on it, and it's not the final product, but it's close to the final product. But overall, it was fine. I was not a huge Battlefront fan to begin with, so I'm only getting it for multiplayer reasons to play with my boys. Um, but that's about it. Other than that, it was cool.
Yeah, so I'm curious to see what other people think. I know a lot of people out there did play the first one a lot, and I'm curious to see what they think, about this second one in the beta form compared to the first one. So let us know your thoughts on that if you're watching or listening. Forza 7 released last week, and we'll be talking about that probably a little more at length when we get to the currently playing. But this kind of blew up rather quickly after it released, and that is that the VIP package, which is a standard thing for kind of the deluxe or ultimate edition owners of the Forza games, the past several actually. So VIP, what it's done in the past is it gives you this kind of bonus. You get double credits for every race, and it kind of gives you these bonuses for the people who play Forza a lot. Well, with Forza 7, Turn 10 actually changed, secretly changed, because Bert, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think anyone knew it changed prior to launch. But they changed it and made it a consumable, basically, that would only work on 25 races instead of, as long as you played the game. And this upset a lot of people. There was a lot of negative press about this, leading or shortly after release. So the good news here is that Alan Hartman, who's the studio head of Turn 10, came out just a couple days ago and said, hey, we've heard your feedback. We're U-turning on this. We apologize. They gave all the players of Forza 7 who own VIP already 1 million credits for special cars, and then in the near future they're going to make VIP function like it did in the previous Forza games, as the players expected. So I know, Bert, you were affected by this because I knew you bought the Ultimate Edition, and did I get those details right? And what do you think about it?
Yeah, you got everything right. And to your original question on did people know? So if you were a person that pre-ordered a ways ago, maybe beginning of September, August, anytime around that time, you did not know, because obviously you're not going to go back to the original page as you pre-order something to find out the details of the car. Maybe if you went to see if there was any pre-order bonuses or something, but they ended up changing the verbiage of what the VIP package was going to do. So a lot of people were really upset with that. I kind of got the game, and funny enough, I was actually waiting to get this to mainly play on Xbox One X, but I wanted to take advantage of the better pricing from Amazon at the beginning. And I got into it. The first thing, I think we were actually gaming online. I told you, yeah, there's a lot more loot boxes and a few things look different here and there. Immediately, like within, I don't know, a couple hours, I went online just to kind of see if people were liking it or not. And it was just very interesting to see that everybody was just pissed beyond belief on VIP. But yeah, when I saw that message coming from Alan Hartman, it was very kind of interesting. Number one, I was like, wow, they are changing it. And you even mentioned it. It'll be interesting to see if they did do a change, and they did. So I think it's good that they did. It makes me wonder what their choice was as why they're doing it. And there's a lot of people that are upset in general about Forza, so not specific to the VIP package, but there's all these crates, and a lot of people feel it's very microtransaction-y. I think the industry in general is moving to that model, but I'm fine with it for the most part, because you can level up to get those cars. But if you want to get a faster way, you have that way. But kind of is what it is. I hit and miss for me overall. But the overall game of Forza 7 is amazing. So if you're a Forza fan, don't stay away from it because of this issue, because it wouldn't affect you anyways. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sure we'll talk. We're both playing it, so I'm sure we'll talk more about it and how it plays. But I think the VIP thing is great, right? It's good that they heard the feedback. People are like, oh, well, they shouldn't have done it in the first place. And, that's an argument. But at least as a developer, within, less than a week after launch, they already responded to it and said they're fixing it. So most developers don't do that sort of thing. So that's good.
Yeah, it was 2 days from the standard launch of the original game, and about 6 days from the VIP launch, because they launched Friday to the Friday before the Tuesday launch. So it was relatively quick, and it was kind of cool that they gave rewards to those VIP people for kind of dealing with them and kind of staying with it. But there was a pretty decent cry out from people online on Reddit or whatever that they were returning the game and they want a full refund and all this stuff. I think that's a bit dramatic, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole nother topic. The whole outrage thing, like you're mentioning, like microtransactions and the loot crates. There's been a big blow up over Forza about these loot crates, and as I've told people now that I'm playing it, is you can buy them with in-game currency, and they don't even affect you. You don't have to. I haven't bought a single one. So I don't understand. I think it's just people hear loot box, and we did our season gaming conversation on this, right? But people hear loot box in a game and they flip out before they even know what the details are. So it's a little ridiculous. But anyway, we'll talk more about Forza here upcoming. One last thing on the VIP though. It was kind of funny because we were talking, right, and I decided to go with the standard edition and not get the VIP because of the changes they made to it. So I get the standard edition, install it, and the very next day they changed the VIP back to the way it was, give 1 million credits and 4 cars. So now I wish I would have bought the damn thing.
Right.
But, oh well. Fortnite. So Fortnite, we talked on the last Bitcast about the whole controversy between Bluehole and PUBG and the Battle Royale mode in Fortnite. Well, Epic is just running with it, as we kind of predicted they would, right? Smartly so, in my opinion. They are running with it. Battle Royale has been a big hit. Lots of people are playing it on, particularly on Xbox and PlayStation, because they don't have the PUBG, don't have PUBG on those platforms. And they just announced over Twitter and all social media a couple days ago that they've had 7 million unique players now on Fortnite, which is obviously a huge increase from prior to the Battle Royale mode being added. It is a free mode to play. You don't even have to own Fortnite to play it. And they've also announced that they're adding progression to it. So people kept asking, when are you going to add things to unlock and do in Battle Royale rather than just play it? So they're going to be adding account progression and customizable options for your character and things like that in the future too. So I think they're going to run with this. It wouldn't surprise me at all to hear that they put more development resources on the Battle Royale side. It just makes sense. Like we talked about before, particularly when you have no Battle Royale game competition on consoles right now. So not surprising, but it seems to be popular.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if there's any legal issues in the future because of this whole thing. Because there's like so many people that are jumping onto it. And as you said before, it's completely free. You don't have to pay for anything. Just do the download and you can start playing. And people are already talking about it'll bypass PUBG pretty soon and concurrent players. Now I don't know if that's going to happen, but it'll be interesting to see if it does, because Fortnite had kind of had I don't want to say rocky start. People didn't go out there and buy it out of control like PUBG did. When PUBG came out, people loved that from the start. So talk about a game that's evolving little by little over time. Kind of cool for them.
Yeah, and I know just from reading, things on the developer, I know PUBG and Bluehole is really staffing up to support the game more. So that game's getting a lot of expansions in the future, but they're almost racing right now, right, to see that market capture. So we'll see how that develops. But I'm looking forward to trying PUBG. We talked about that before. Supposedly, according to Microsoft and Bluehole, it's still coming to Xbox One with X enhancements before the end of the year. So we'll see. So we kind of saw this news, and we were a little saddened because really this is probably our game of the year front runner right now. But it's surprising to see that it's not selling too well. I can see Bert laughing already. So, oh my God, it's like the punching bag, I swear. And it doesn't deserve to be, as we said before. But Knack 2, we're back on Knack. We just saw some news out of Japan this week, which was really, I won't say it's really surprising, but it's almost, it's really interesting that Knack 2 apparently in its first week in Japan, where Knack 1 sold well on the PlayStation 4's launch, Knack 2 sold 2,601 copies. That is extremely low. And even though Knack came with some PlayStation 4s at launch in Japan, it represents less than 1% of the total sales of Knack 1 at launch in Japan. So I don't know what the sales figures are for the US. There hasn't been any buzz about that game that I've seen other than people mocking it, which again is a shame, and the developer doesn't deserve that. But it is crazy to think it sold so few units in Japan, and it wouldn't surprise me if it didn't sell well here. So as we kind of discussed before, it's going to be interesting to see what the future of that franchise is, because I know it's a franchise that Sony was trying to push, and with Knack 2, they were trying to, kind of correct some of the mistakes with Knack 1, but it just doesn't seem like people care or are interested in that game.
Yeah, so one of the funny, surprising things that I heard about Knack was
NAC 1 sold about 1.75 million units worldwide when it came out, and it'd be interesting to see if that actually launched during the middle of the PlayStation 4 era versus the launch, because I think a lot of people bought it just to get the launch title as it is. So it's kind of interesting that NAC 2 comes out, is the better game, and it still does worse. I mean, they try to listen to as much feedback as you can. Now, 1.75 million units for the original is not too bad for an exclusive launch title. So, take that as you will. But I think a lot of people didn't even finish NAC 1. They kind of thought it was pretty bad and moved on. But I don't know. I mean, I think this will not probably see a part 3. I think if anything, maybe it's like a demo for PlayStation 5 or something, because they have a pretty big studio producing the game, and then one of the most technical guys on the Sony side is producing it. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's kind of funny overall. I thought the joking about Game of the Year was pretty funny.
Who's joking? Who's joking?
Whoa.
Oh.
Serious now.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they let that one go, and they start working on a new franchise for probably PlayStation 5, as you said. We'll see. So Halo Recruit. This is something interesting. So without getting too much into the larger details here, Windows is basically, or Microsoft is launching mixed reality headsets for Windows in a couple weeks here. And one of the things that they're touting as a kind of demo, it's not really a game, but it's almost like a showcase thing, is Halo Recruit. And what it is essentially, it's like a 5 to 10 minute thing where you can look at a few of the Halo iconic characters, whether it's Chief, or I think an Elite, and some of the weapons, the pistol, needler, etc., and just look at them in VR. So you can kind of be in that environment to look at things in a virtual reality environment. So it's nothing crazy, but of course I find it interesting being the big Halo fan. And I know that at Microsoft stores nationwide, you're going to be able to go in and do this and just see it. So, of course, I will do that. But I thought that was neat. The bigger news, of course, this ties to is that mixed reality is coming to Windows 10 in just a couple weeks, like I said. And was it Samsung, I believe, is launching what they're calling a high-end mixed reality headset for Windows 10, which is rumored to be tied to Xbox One X in the future. Not this year, but maybe later next year. And this is a VR headset that has, full wireless everything and an OLED screen in it. So I think we're starting to see that next generation or 2.0 version of virtual reality, come to fruition like we talked about prior. What do you think about this?
Very cool. I will definitely be trying it out as well, just to see the VR thing. I've never been a huge VR person in general. I've never really been interested in it. I didn't even pick up the PSVR when it came out. But yeah, to your point, one thing I will say is the Samsung OLED screens that you can get on your phones and that they've been pushing for a while are amazing. So that'll be something cool just to see what it looks like when it comes. But yeah, I'm super excited about it. I'm very curious to see if the Xbox One X will kind of be one of the platforms for VR for the Xbox brand in general in the future. I don't know. They tried to push Kinect for a while, and that wasn't quite VR, but it was motion. And then I wonder if this is their next step. But I don't know if VR has sold that well in the console space. But
yeah,
more surprises. I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I think it was Albert Pinello, who's part of the engineering team at Xbox, commented just the other day, and you kind of nailed it. Is that he said specifically that they learned from Kinect, and that they didn't want to distract developers with VR this year with the Xbox One X launching. So they've basically, allowed developers to just focus purely on the games, which is probably why so many games are getting Xbox One X upgrades, along with other factors, of course. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see next year if they start pushing that. As you said, I don't know what the market is there. PlayStation VR is about as affordable as you can make VR in the console space, and it hasn't really sold that well. I mean, it's sold well enough, I guess, but it hasn't really lit the world on fire. So we'll see. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, it's even the PC space hasn't really sold amazingly well. I think a lot of people that are big PC gamers that have to get the latest and greatest everything, like video cards and stuff, kind of adopted it at the beginning, but then there was a lack of software. And when the software came out, that a lot of people didn't care for it. So maybe it's the latest experiment that just kind of falls flat or just does average, and the industry doesn't really invest in it that much more, and they would kind of move on. But I don't know. I'm not an industry expert. I don't claim to be in any form. It's just kind of what I see in here. I think I've seen a lot of people actually trading in their PSVR complete setups, the headsets, the controllers, and they just don't want anything to do with it anymore because the software kind of sucks, with the exception of like 1 or 2 titles.
Yeah.
So.
All right, so moving on to PlayStation, actually. So Horizon Zero Dawn, which is one of our favorite games of the year and in our Game of the Year discussion, the complete edition was announced, which includes, obviously all the updates through now and the Frozen Wilds DLC, which releases next month. But, that's news in of itself. But what this obviously means, at least on the surface, is that the Frozen Wilds DLC will be the only expansion for Horizon Zero Dawn. So I don't know what I think about that yet. I'm anxious to play it. Obviously, I 100%ed Horizon Zero Dawn. So I'm looking forward to Frozen Wilds, but I was really hoping to see that game kind of have a longer tail. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think I remember hearing the developer talk about just creating the DLC and how long it takes for them to do that. Maybe they're already working on something new, if not the sequel, the true sequel to the game, and they just kind of want to leave it alone. But yeah, it is kind of sad. At the same time, I was blown away by the game. I would have been happy if there was no DLC, but I do love that there is DLC coming. So it just sucks the date because I will probably not play it on launch date. I'll be playing my One X on launch day, not the DLC. But I will come back to the DLC within a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's always a funny thing when you get the Sony versus Microsoft date competitions, right, where they try to release things. Because for guys like us or people that buy everything, it's like, well, there's obviously something I'm not going to get to, and that's going to be it. I think I've already bought it, actually, because it's a 25% discount, right, if you're a PS Plus member, to pre-order the Frozen Wild. So it's $14.99 instead of $19.99. So I've actually already bought it, but I'm not going to be playing it right away. So we'll see. Sticking on Sony, so Paris Games Week is coming up here. It actually runs November 1st to November 5th, and they've actually teased or hinted that they're going to have some new game announcements and that people will want to be paying attention to Paris Games Week. So traditionally, it's kind of a weird time of the year for Sony because they do Paris Games Week, which is kind of big for them, but then they also have PSX, and PSX is but a few weeks after Paris Games Week. So I don't know what they may have in store. Obviously hoping for some, surprises. We may see more Last of Us 2, who knows, more God of War. I'm sure we'll see maybe some more Days Gone, but in terms of new game surprises, it'll be interesting to see what they bring.
I think Sony's going to be throwing everything they possibly can out on these conferences and game conversations. I'm sure we'll see some big surprises of some sort just to take steam away from the Xbox One X. Because if you think of the Sony lineup for the fall as far as the big touted amazing exclusives, there really isn't too many amazing things going on this fall from Sony in just releases. There's a few announcements for 2018 that people are super excited about, but outside of Destiny, Call of Duty, and Star Wars, and a few other games, like I guess you could consider Gran Turismo a big thing, there's really nothing amazing that's out right now for Sony that you have to get this fall that is considered a new release. So I bet you something will be there. Maybe Last of Us gameplay. Maybe we get Red Dead Redemption gameplay. Maybe that. I have no idea, but I'm sure we'll be getting surprised in some form.
Yeah, now you've got me excited thinking about possible Red Dead Redemption or Last of Us gameplay. So we'll see. All right, so that's really the core news. We're going to try and keep that a little more concise going forward. So let's talk about a few developer-related things, a couple big things that came out. And again, sticking on Sony. So this was a big surprise earlier this week, and that is that Andrew House, who is the CEO and president of Sony Interactive Entertainment, he stepped down and resigned. And John Codera has been appointed the president and CEO effective immediately. Andrew House is going to stay on through the end of the year to help him get acclimated, of course, but then he's moving on. So he's been with Sony for a very long time, 27 years, if my memory serves. I think 1990s when he started. And he is also the gentleman who created, Sony Interactive Entertainment. He merged some prior companies or subdivisions of Sony underneath that banner. And he's done a tremendous job, obviously. He was in charge during PlayStation 4 and PlayStation VR development. He's had a big impact on PSN and the whole PSN Plus thing, and just PlayStation as a brand. So for, in terms of Sony as a corporation, I don't know what this means. I don't know much about John Codera or his background, but we'll have to see if this has any large impact on Sony going forward. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have a few, and the first thing is, I mean, to your point of him being somewhere so long, 27 years. If you kind of think about your personal career, I haven't taken the news as so much as negative news coming. I think he may have just been moving on to something else, just to do something different. I mean, you're at a corporation for so long, you know, maybe you want a change of scenery, something new. Though the biggest surprise for me was Kadera taking over, because if you know anything about him, he was kind of in charge of the online community and the online things like PS and Plus and stuff, and a lot of the subscription stuff was his design and everything. And in my opinion, as far as where Sony has come, that's one of the weakest things that you can get from the Sony product in general, is how weak their online service is until recently. They've gotten better with some of their PSN Plus games that they give out and stuff, but their overall online product is poor compared to Microsoft in that standpoint. So I don't know. I figured they would have gone with somebody different. I don't have anything problems with as far as John Kadera goes, but I just figured they would have done something else. If we start seeing Sony kind of, I don't want to say lose market share, because they already have massive market share in console, but if they start making some weird decisions or something, it might be a little bit more telling. Maybe he didn't want to move in that direction before. And when I say him, I mean Andrew House, as far as some of the decisions Sony's moving forward. But Andrew House is pretty important to Sony, because I think if it wasn't him, Sony might have gone bankrupt, if not exist anymore, because the Sony PlayStation brand has been one of the biggest things that's been keeping Sony alive. It's not their TVs, it's not their Walkmans or their Discmans that were out before.
Walkmans.
Yeah, I mean that was Sony's heyday. I mean, if you were a kid in the 80s and 90s and maybe even a little bit of early 2000s, but not really, Sony was the brand to get. You had to get everything from them. You had the boom boxes. Maybe we lost about a whole bunch of people when I mentioned a boombox, but even their TVs. I mean, their TVs were amazing back in the day. I remember the XBR brand; everybody had to get that. And but the second that we moved from a tube to something else, LG and Philips and everybody else kind of took over, and Sony fell way behind. And then Apple came along, and that took the entire market share of portable music. So I would be very interesting to see if he never existed and the Sony PlayStation brand didn't exist, if Sony would still be around today. So props to him. Good job on everything he's done. We'll see what happens with Sony going forward.
Yeah. Walkmans and boomboxes, man, we're going way back.
You got to have that anti-skip for the CD player.
That's real important. I had one without it, and trust me, you might as well not even try to listen to a CD. It was a waste of time. Another big piece here on developers is Ubisoft, who is, some people love them, some people hate them. Regardless of what you think about them, their games sell. Division, I believe, still, I don't recall, but I know Division was the best-selling game of last year, or one of the top three for sure. The top-selling game so far this year is Ghost Recon Wildlands. And they have just a lot of big games that sell. Rainbow Six Siege and For Honor is, I think, in the top 5 as well this year. So, like I said, regardless of what you think of them, they have been fighting off a hostile takeover. So this is kind of the politics of corporate, corporate video game companies that you don't really hear about much in the industry. But because they're giant corporations and worth hundreds of millions or billions of dollars, this kind of stuff occurs. So Vivendi has been trying to buy out Ubisoft. They have a 27% market share of Ubisoft right now, but Ubisoft at least seems to be fending them off for the time being. They are buying 4 million shares back from people, and then they're really just canceling out the shares. So the whole goal here is to reduce or prevent, I should say, Vivendi from reaching a 30% market share, which would allow them to kind of push further to take over ownership of Ubisoft. So this is not something we talk about too often. It's kind of getting into the weeds of the video game industry, but I thought it was interesting because, we've seen good developers and good development companies be taken over by corporate interests, people that really have no care for the video game industry other than making money. And that can really, tear developers apart and really make them lose talent. So you look at something like the Assassin's Creed franchise and Ghost Recon and all these other things that Ubisoft has created. And it'd be kind of a shame if, if we saw that just go down the corporate side where it was run into the ground. So this seems to be good news for gamers, at least for the short term.
Yeah, we've seen it with recently. If you're a fan of maybe the Mass Effect series, some of the Star Wars series, Even the Dead Space series, these were all bought out by big companies like EA and Activision. You might even say the Call of Duty series in general has changed a lot over time when Activision started taking things over. So, I hope they stay afloat and they can continue to do things the way they want to do. But I personally don't like when massive companies do this. So I hope they can keep to themselves on it.
Yep. All right. So just one rumor to talk about today that we had on the list here, and that is Microsoft. It came out by Bloomberg, actually, which was a weird kind of site to be reporting this. But earlier this week, Bloomberg wrote an article that said that Microsoft was in talks with Bluehole to extend or secure forever console exclusivity for PUBG. And that is not surprising even a little. We talked, I think we both commented that it wouldn't surprise us in the future if we heard that Microsoft was trying to extend the exclusivity of the franchise, and it would be smart for them to do, with PUBG being just a worldwide phenomenon right now. So really not a lot of detail on this one. It's just a rumor. Nobody has commented, officially on this, but it just makes sense if you think about it. I mean, Microsoft is looking for exclusives for the Xbox platform. PUBG is one of the biggest right now. And if they can, come through the holidays, say we have PUBG, and oh, by the way, that's, Xbox exclusive forever, that's a pretty big boost, because I know there's a lot of people in the console space that are looking to play PUBG. So especially with the Xbox One X releasing, and it's supposedly, getting the full treatment as well on that platform. So not surprising here, but any thoughts from you on that one?
Yeah, I really think they should. I mean, to your point earlier, Microsoft has been getting hit in the press all the time with lack of exclusives. This would be a good one to have under their belts. And, whether it's 100% exclusive, never going to be, coming over to Sony, or just a longer time of exclusivity, I think would be a good choice. Even more that, they've been helping a little bit with development here and there. But the second it comes to Sony, it's going to be cross-platform. At that point, you can do all that stuff. So a good example would be like the Tomb Raider series. This was originally a timed exclusive. The second it came to PlayStation, everybody was getting the same thing. So I think it would be highly smart choice to buy as much as you can from them at this point. So maybe they buy the complete product and they become a Microsoft studio. Who knows? But we'll see. I think it'd be good for Microsoft to have another good exclusive under their belt.
Yeah, and just because, I've heard some Sony-only guys going kind of frantic over this, and keep in mind that just because Microsoft is talking about buying the studio, or rumors of that buying the studio, even if they did buy the studio, it doesn't necessarily mean that the game won't end up on PlayStation, right? I mean, Microsoft owns Minecraft and Mojang and all of that development team and assets, and that Minecraft is on everything. In fact, Microsoft is pushing crossplay between, PC and Switch, and hopefully PlayStation 4 in the future. It just means that Microsoft, of course, is profiting from that franchise, right? So be interesting to see one way or another. We'll likely know within the next, 4 to 6 months. So. All right, so let's talk about new releases. A couple big games that we've both been waiting for and have been playing quite a lot. So first up, I'm going to run through these, Bird, and then we'll kind of move into your thoughts on them and what you've been playing individually. So Cuphead, my favorite release in a long time, finally is here. I've played the hell out of it already. Love it to death. My review is up on the site. It's currently reviewing very well. It's got an average score on OpenCritic of 87. And I think, Bert, you owe me, what do you owe me? An Xbox One X for that one, I think. I think that was our bet, so I'll just wait November 7th for you to arrive at my door. Forza 7 is out, and that's, again, but even beyond the whole VIP and nonsense microtransaction discussion surrounding it, it's been reviewed extremely well as well. That's also riding an 87 right now on OpenCritic. Battle Chasers Night War. This is a little lesser known game, but I found it interesting, and I may be actually picking this up in the future. It's based on a novel series, as I understand it, or maybe graphic novel series. But this is one. It's like more of an old school JRPG style turn-based role-playing game, and has a really unique art aesthetic to it, and is reviewing pretty well. It's at an 80 on OpenCritic and strong. And people seem to be liking it. So, and I believe that as well, that's a $29.99 game instead of a full price game. And it is coming to Switch later in the year as well. FIFA 18 is here. So we've talked about FIFA, at length. That's a worldwide phenomenon as well. It's kind of the best-selling game worldwide, and that's out. Although it doesn't seem to be getting the high critical praise that FIFA games have traditionally gotten, or gotten, most of the time. It's running an 83 right now on OpenCritic, and there's been some talk that this is one of the years that it's not really at its peak. So I haven't played it myself, but just relaying what I've heard. And then just around the corner here in a couple days is Shadow of War finally releases, but the reviews are already coming out. The embargo actually ended on that a couple days ago. So, and that's reviewing really well as well. That's at an 85 right now, Mighty. I know some of the major publications gave it over a 9. So again, that's another game that's had a lot of conversation around it with the whole microtransaction and loot box thing. Haven't played it myself yet, so I don't really know what to comment. But apparently, it's regardless of that, it's doing well as well. So anyway, those are kind of the major releases we've seen over the past week and what's upcoming. Bert, what are you, I know you're playing Cuphead, Forza, some of the things we talked about here. And you obviously need to find another Xbox One X now to give to me, but what are you up to?
Yeah, so I want to talk briefly on some of the releases you're talking about. So the first thing about Cuphead, and I am playing that. I'm not 100% like you are. I'm not as good at it as you are. But it over exceeded my expectations, which is kind of crazy because I was very excited about the game. I wanted it really bad for dating back a long ways, but playing this, just the how fine-tuned the game is, how pretty the game is, how creative the bosses are in the game, and I don't know, it's one of my favorite games of the year so far, and I still play it even though I get destroyed numerous times. I think the last time I went to the fountain to count my deaths, I was over 400. So, and I just finished the second. No, I have one boss left, that dumb Queen Bee left to finish on the island, and I've completed that area. So I'm getting there, but I will probably never beat the devil in the game. I fully admit that it's just frustrating. I won't be able to. My skills are not there.
Watch out for that saw on the Queen Bee, man.
That's every time. Another thing that I was thinking about recently is Forza 7. Obviously, I have it. You have it. We're playing that right now. But I'm really wanting to see how that one does in sales, because as we've talked about in the past, most new releases do the majority of their sales within the first month, or at least the first 3 weeks of release. With the Xbox One X going to be launching, about a month after the game releases, if they're going to have like a surge in sales when the Xbox One X is out, because that'll be one of the showcase titles, from Microsoft, and having the full 4K native, 60 frames per second running as smooth as possible. So I really want to see if that does great in sales. And I think by the time that's over, all the negative press with it will be way over. People will be mind blown by the graphics and the gameplay, and we'll be able to see more of that. So is what it is. Really quick on the FIFA talk, I think the main reason that people are just kind of like not impressed with it is because they really didn't do much different in the game. There's a few tiny touches here and there. Kind of goes the same with other EA games this year. They really weren't touched that much. The NHL series barely changed or anything. They're kind of in a cruise control mode here, mainly because of licensing. So as we were talking earlier about big things, EA's got the license on just about every single sport, with the exception of baseball and NBA. So I don't know. It kind of a letdown that FIFA didn't do much. I don't play a lot of FIFA anyways. I do it mainly socially with friends, but I don't really go crazy on it or whatever. There was one more game. Oh yeah, so Shadow of War. A lot of people are saying it's their game of the year, and it looks that good for some people. I loved the first one, and I really want to get the second one, but I have so much to play that it's probably going to be on hold until November for me. But it looks amazing. I've been seeing some people talking about how much different and bigger the world is, and the Nemesis system that's in that game is something that I think everybody has to at least try once. So even if you want to try it out from the first game, I mean, that game is dirt cheap now. You really have no excuses not to give it a try. It may even become free within the next year on PlayStation or Xbox. So I don't know. I really want to try it out. Lastly, on the stuff that I'm playing right now, so I'm playing way too much to the point to where I lose what I was doing on the previous game when I come to the next one. So I finally picked up F1 2017 on the Xbox. I did review it and play a whole season and then some on the PlayStation 4 Pro. But it's so I picked it up on Xbox, and I can't wait for it to come out on the Xbox One X, because it's going to have some amazing enhancements similar to the Pro. Playing Dying Light socially, and I picked up the enhanced edition, so I'll be playing some of the DLC that I didn't get to play before. Let's see, I have my list over here. There's like so much. So we're still playing Gears, and it's they're double XP weekend, so we'll be playing more of that this weekend, if not after we finish this Bitcast. Still trying my best to get through Lost Legacy. The more and more I play it, it's an amazing game, but I'm honestly a little bit bored with it in a lot of areas. I'm finding myself struggling to move to the next story area. And I don't know what it is. I mean, it looks beautiful. It's got the Uncharted feel to it. Maybe it's just we all kind of fell in love with Nathan Drake and Sully to the point to where he needs to be in the game, and the main character in the game. I've got no problems with the characters. It's just that they just don't interest me as much. And then obviously Cuphead, I'll keep trucking my way through it, but it's just there's going to be a line to where I just won't be able to do it anymore. So how about you?
Yeah, so pretty similar. So Cuphead, I promise I won't go on about it. Love it to death, playing the hell out of it. I think, it came out, Friday, and it's an indie game, and I already have like 17, 18, 19 hours into it. I have beat it. I did review it, and I made sure to beat it before I reviewed it, just because that's how we do things here. I've also already beat several of the bosses on Expert, including the Devil, because I want to beat all the bosses on Expert. I basically want 100% it. And I've beat all the running gun levels without firing a shot, which is called the Pacifist achievement, and that allows you to unlock the black and white mode, which is really, really cool as well. So, like I said, been playing the hell out of that, and I've been playing it with my son, too. It's really fun to play two-player Cuphead and Mugman, and he's been enjoying it, though. He gets absolutely destroyed. He has not grown up with those 2D kind of tough games, and so I find myself reviving him more than anything else while we're playing, but it's a lot of fun. Forza, I am loving. I think it's fantastic. It's gorgeous even on the Xbox One. The lighting, especially the HDR support like we saw in Forza Horizon 3, really adds a ton to it. The dynamic weather, and I was racing on, funny enough, I was racing on Circuit of the Americas yesterday on a race, and it just kind of clouded over and started raining and got wetter and wetter, and it was really, really impressive, I thought. So enjoying that. The fact that Porsche's in it right out of the gate, of course, is a huge bonus for me. I already have a couple, and I'm working on wanting to collect them all. So that's a lot of fun. Dying Light, as you said, we're playing that together. I never actually played it prior. So me, you, and another buddy are working on that. And that's been a lot of fun when it works. We've had a lot of kind of technical hiccups with that game in terms of the multiplayer, but that's a ton of fun as well. And then I went back to Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle the other day. And I think I finally beat the first full world. So I moved into the second world, which again is probably still pretty early. I've just been playing so much, but that game's just got a lot of charm into it. I really enjoy that one as well. So that'll be one I'm trying to play if I'm upstairs or something. I'm playing it on the go so I can get more time into it. But about Uncharted Lost Legacy, I had that here as I was currently playing, and I haven't gone back to it. And I kind of echo some of your statements there. Is that it's gorgeous, especially on the PlayStation 4 Pro, just like Uncharted 4 was. There's nothing wrong with it. The writing's good. The cinematics are great. There's nothing driving me to play it. Like, I just don't have the urge to play that game like I do all these other games we're talking about. So I don't know. It's already October. We've got major releases here coming in the next few weeks, obviously. So I don't know when I'm going to actually get to it and finish it. Well, I guess we'll see. But yeah, I think that's everything. I'm kind of like you, playing a lot. So, but a lot of good stuff out there, and I'm just so happy that that Cuphead was as good or better than anticipated. That kind of made my year so far. So, anyway, anything else on any of those? Any current games?
No, I'm worried that the rest of the games coming out this month are going to take even more of our time away, and having to choose, which ones you want to get in the month of October, because there's so much coming out this month that's, has to be bought or played. What are you choosing? What are you not choosing? What do you skip? What do you wait till maybe a Black Friday sale or Christmas or something? And I don't know. It's stressful. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I think we were just talking earlier about Evil Within 2, right? That comes out next week, which is Friday the 13th. And we both love those games, want to play it, but again, just time. And the sad thing is, as we talked about in some other Bitcasts, is we know that game, due to when it's releasing and the type of game it is, that you'll be able to get it a month after it releases for probably half price. So if I don't have time to play it now, it's really not worth buying at launch. You know what I mean? Which is kind of a shame. And then Assassin's Creed Origins, the more I see of that game, especially on the Xbox One X, they finally showed some straight raw 4K footage from Xbox One X for AC Origins. It looks absolutely stunning. And the fact that they've designed the game more like a full role-playing game with loot and a big skill tree, and you can play different ways. Oh man, I don't think I've ever been excited for an Assassin's Creed. That's not my franchise, but I'm really excited for this one. So I hope it launches well. We'll see. If it does launch well without a lot of bugs and people aren't having issues, I'll probably pick that one up sooner rather than later, even though it launches the same day as Mario, which is going to be my core focus, as soon as that launches. So we'll see.
Yeah, you got Mario, Wolfenstein, Assassin's Creed all on the same day.
It's ridiculous.
And that's just... I'm pretty sure I'm going to go with Mario on there, but I don't know.
Yeah, and Wolfenstein, we didn't talk about this on the news, but Wolfenstein made headlines yesterday or the day before because they started on their social media accounts making puns about "Make America Nazi Free Again," which, Wolfenstein's been about killing Nazis for 30 years, and for whatever reason, we won't get into it, but there was a small group of people that, took that as a leftist political statement and got pissed off, and it turned into this big thing. And I'm like, of all the things to argue about, I'm pretty sure we all agreed, I thought at least for the past 7 decades, that Nazis suck, and that there shouldn't be an argument when we're making fun of Nazis or joking about killing Nazis in video games. But for whatever reason, in our current climate, that became a discussion point. So
yeah, just to keep this very bitcasty and no politics, I'm just going to refrain from any comment whatsoever. But it is kind of nutty that we have to be careful about offending that in a joking manner. But
yeah, I think luckily most people responded and said, "Keep up the good work," but that said, "This is hilarious, and we support you." So it's good to see that, but it's just ridiculous that that's even a discussion. It shouldn't be. All right, so let's move on. We're going to cover our main topic today, which is actually going to be games as a service. So this is a phrase that we started hearing more a couple years ago, as Destiny really rose in popularity, and games, a lot of Ubisoft games, we talked about this prior, but have kind of gone to this model. Division, Rainbow Six Siege is a good one. For Honor has a year-long plan now of upgrades and things they're doing for the community. But we've had some notable comments from some large developers, Ubisoft being one of them. But Square Enix actually came out, and if you look at Square Enix and what they've done over the past few years, they were the company that let go of Hitman to IO Interactive because it only sold about 4 million copies. And then they complained that Tomb Raider didn't sell as much as they wanted it to, even though it sold 7 million copies. So I'm not quite sure what's in the water over there at Square Enix. If you're a publisher and you have a franchise like Hitman, which really isn't a tier 1 franchise nowadays, but it sells 4 million copies, and you think that's poor, or Tomb Raider selling 7 million copies is poor, I don't really know what to tell you. That's kind of crazy. But so they came out essentially and said that their focus is going to be driving towards developing games that have a longer tail, or, same type of thing, right? Develop into a game as a service that people will invest their time and money into over a period of time, potentially up to years. And I think we're going to start seeing this more, because if you look at something, Destiny's kind of the prime example, and Destiny 2 is doing really well. If you look at Grand Theft Auto 5, that may be one of the biggest examples as well. That had a massive release as expected for Grand Theft Auto, but it's just continued to sell. It's over 80 million copies now, which is just absurd to think about. And Grand Theft Auto Online, just, they're just steadily releasing content for it, and people keep buying it and playing it. And in fact, it's done so well for Rockstar that they canceled the planned single-player content for Grand Theft Auto 5, the single-player expansion that they had talked about after launch. So, which is kind of a shame in my opinion. So I don't know, how I personally feel about this. I've got a lot of thoughts, but I think let's start with just a couple questions for you, Bert, and we'll kind of go back and forth on it. So, what are your personal thoughts on games as a service, games like I just mentioned, versus what we've traditionally seen with, say, single player games. The Last of Us or Uncharted, even though they have multiplayer components, they're still looked at primarily as single player experiences. Things like Persona 5 or Hellblade, Horizon Zero Dawn, another great example, right? And games that have traditionally had single player and multiplayer, but not really as a service, right? So things like Halo and Gears and those types of games as well. So what are your thoughts, between those two? Which do you prefer, and do you have one you prefer?
Yeah, so I'll start out with the main point of I'm more of a single player person myself. I do multiplayer a bit, but on games that are designed for multiplayer stuff, like whether they have a multiplayer mode like Gears or Dying Light having a co-op mode where you can go through story. I spend most of my time gaming by myself in a single player. I like stories that are driven, whether it be RPG or third person like Tomb Raider or something that I go through. I prefer those games as a gamer overall. The biggest negative that I see with these games as a service mentality is a lot of these games don't advertise themselves as a game with a service mentality going through. A good example is Destiny. When Destiny 1 came out, this was their big game. They did say that they do have a deal for 10 years. Destiny is going to be this, but at the beginning, not many people knew if that standalone Destiny game was going to be that, and they were just going to build on that or what. And then in the future, we found out that they were developing Destiny 2. My biggest problem with it is I think that developers get pretty lazy with the launch of their game, and their game launch is not complete. Whether it be bugs, whether it be lack of content, whether it be missing modes that they initially advertised that were coming, and then when the game launches, like, oh, that's not ready, we're going to launch that later. But it's their pricing model that I have an issue with. If Destiny, when it first came out, was $40 or even $29.99, and then down the line you could buy DLC that would complete the game, whether it be story or content-based, I'd be a lot better with that. But being that we're launching this every single time for $59.99 and then their DLC, I think we did the math last time, and Destiny 1, when it first came out, was somewhere around the $120 to $140 range after you got all DLC, when you could have just waited down the line and bought the complete edition for, $60 or less than that eventually. So if they're ahead of time saying games with service, sell it like games with service, sell it cheaper, and then pay people down the road with it. My biggest problem is the lack of content when the game with service releases. So that's my quick 2 cents on a long topic that I could probably talk all day about. So
yeah, no, I think your last point there is the most valid to me, and that is that when they talk about games as a service, there has to be content to support that. I think once we finished vanilla Destiny, it just became, if you didn't want to just do the boring grind of the same strikes and missions over and over again, there really was no content. You had to wait for those expansions, and the first couple expansions for the game were really light on content as well. It wasn't until the Taken King came out the following year where it really kind of added new substantial content. So, and I think in that vein, it's it's almost MMO-like, right? Because MMOs have always faced the same problem. It's this is going to be a game you subscribe to monthly, and we're going to continually provide content, but the gaps between major content releasing for these games can sometimes be substantial, and that affects, I know it affects me, and it could be because I play so many games, but unless there's something interesting to keep you playing, then I'm not a huge fan of it personally.
Yeah, when you think of Destiny 2 that has come out, unless you saw all the changes from day one on Destiny 1, Destiny 2, to me, is Destiny 1.5. I really don't think Destiny 2 is any kind of leap in technology or anything in story or graphics. It does look nicer, but it's not a massive jump to where other games have jumped in this generation. You look at a launch title to where we are today on PlayStation or Xbox One, it's completely different in graphics, technology, sound, everything, loading times. And Destiny 2 is not anything mind-blowing to me. So to me, that's another DLC almost for it, or maybe a large DLC or something. And if Destiny was sold as a subscription service like you were talking about before for the next 10 years and you're paying whatever it is, that would make more sense to me. But to me, these releases every 2 or 3 years are going to be really annoying after a while. If Destiny 3 releases the exact same way with just a nicer story or more story to it, that'll probably piss me off pretty good. So I don't know. To me, people love it. I've already seen people with 160 hours in that game, and they'll eat it up every time just because there's a little bit new content and they're still patrolling Earth. So I don't know.
I don't know who you're talking about. Yeah, I'm the same way. I think, I've really always enjoyed the games that have a single player campaign and a multiplayer component that's a dedicated, supported multiplayer component. We talk about the Gears, we talk about the Halos, the Battlefields, Call of Duties. I really like that model. And maybe I'm just used to that model. I don't really have anything against games as a service in terms of the model, but it's just the content. The content has to be there. When you're playing competitive multiplayer, to me anyway, like a Halo, Gears, Call of Duty, Battlefield, every time you play is kind of something new, and they add maps and they add weapons, etc. But there's, you're always playing against new people and new strategies and dynamics. Whereas when you're playing something that's co-op or single player, it gets very repetitive. And I don't know, maybe that's something in the next few years or future we see something where procedural generation will help with that, or better artificial intelligence. I'm sure we'll see that evolve over the coming years, where it becomes less repetitive and less static, I guess. So we'll see.
Yeah, it does seem to be that this is something that the industry is moving towards in general. I mean, we think of another example, so it doesn't seem like I'm always railing on Destiny, but Star Wars Battlefront 1. When that game first came out, I mean, the content was a joke. It still is a joke if I think about it again. But then if you think about it, Battlefront got, gosh, I think like 4 DLC packs after that. And you had to have the season pass for some, and then some were not part of the season pass. And so I guess they somewhat listened, and now Battlefront 2 is coming out. And ahead of time, they're telling you everything that's going to be coming out with DLC in the future, kind of more about the story ahead of time. So despite selling crazy numbers for the first one because of the Star Wars name on it, they kind of got away with that. But now they're selling it, and they're kind of almost taking the negative from something and turning it into a positive, which I guess is genius in a way. But we ahead of time know that we're getting a ton of DLC. It's all going to be free. And there's more story in it this time. So, but that's still kind of a games with service because you're going to be playing it for a bit of time. So, I don't know. I think the industry is moving towards that. Is the point that I'm making there.
Yeah, and so that kind of moves into the next main thought on this that we were going to touch on, and that is, with Square talking about this, the reason they're talking about it is profitability, right? And how they continue to support AAA studios with the cost of game development increasing. Some games cost over $100 million to make now. So it's getting to the point where a AAA game experience will cost as much as a AAA movie to make and produce. And so, the big question really is, how do developers continue to provide AAA experiences profitably, without designing the game to be a service? And I think there's a lot of discussion around how they do this. Some games, I don't know the financial figures, but some games will pay for themselves just because they're so good that word of mouth, they sell enough copies to where they make a profit, just without any additional content or additional things in the game that people can spend money on. I don't know, I keep going back to Horizon Zero Dawn, or, Zelda may be a good example, right? Zelda's already sold probably 5 million plus copies now, and will continue to sell, as we know. So that's going to be profitable for Nintendo, I'm sure. Without really selling anything additional. But I think, I think some of the studios like Square Enix that we're talking about are looking at things like Destiny, where they can continue to release expansions, or even games, like there's a lot of games like, I'll pull one out of my hat here, like Smite, right? That's a MOBA that is free to download and play. It's more a free-to-play model where you earn things, but people spend a lot of money on that game for customization. So you buy lots of skins and things that show off in the game. And I think that's another aspect as well. You mentioned Battlefront 2, and they said there's no season pass. The DLC is going to be free, and they're spending a ton of money to make that game between the 3 development studios and the single-player campaign and the multiplayer. But it has loot crates, right? And I'm sure you'll be able to buy those loot crates with real money should you want. Now, they're not going to hugely affect gameplay, but, Star Wars fanatics, I mean, if they want a skin or a Boba Fett, or, for Darth Maul or whoever, those guys will go out of their way to spend extra money to get those. So it's an interesting question. I think we're just kind of scratching the surface here around how these studios continue to make money while putting out tens or hundreds of millions to make and support these games.
Yeah, I think, and funny enough, and not to get off topic, but that and microtransactions, I think, I'm interested to see if the industry sees it over time, people get sick of it, and then they have to change the model again. So I don't know. I think people are getting really sick of microtransactions.
Yeah, I think that's where the outrage is coming from. As soon as someone hears microtransaction or loot box, right? And I think some of it's even unjustified, as we talked about with Forza, right? There's no need for the hate on that game. It's just another feature in the game that is really not costing you any money or stopping you from experiencing any content. So I think we need to be a little more selective. All the community needs to be a little more selective around how we view these things. But there are other companies that do have bad models and kind of predatory models. And I heard an interesting comment the other day, again, like you said, not getting us too far off topic, but it's just a fact that some of these games, especially the free-to-play market, they're developing the games around kind of the gambling methodology, right? How they hook you and want you to continue to want to get something, and it pushes you down a path where it makes people want to spend money to get things in the game. And the funny thing about that, right, is that when something gets categorized as gambling, it's then faces a whole string of legal ramifications that they have to face, right, and laws that affect those types of things. So it'll be real interesting to see if video games get to a point where some of them get classified as a gambling exercise and have to make some changes or face some legal ramifications of how they produce those. Because if you think, like I can't go online right now legally in the US and play poker for money, right? But I can go and I can turn on Fortnite and I could spend $1,000 opening up, loot llamas that may not give me anything of substance. So it's an interesting conversation. I think that we're only now getting into the beginning of this cycle. And I think it's going to be something, as you said, that evolves over time, and developers are going to have to figure out a way to walk that line.
Yep. No, completely agree. It's a good point too about gambling, because you can spend so much money. I know people that spend a ton of money on gears trying to get the best pack or the best people. Yeah. And, I guess that's gambling in a way, if you think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially, you can make the argument that it's all cosmetic, right? You're not earning anything of substance back. I'm no expert. I don't know how they would categorize that, but it's going to definitely be a conversation point in the future, I think. And then just to close this one out, just being hypothetical. So, our personal thoughts on whether or not you see, because of the way the industry is moving, do you foresee a future where major franchises that we're used to playing in numbered releases or annual releases will move to more of a service, right? So, for instance, do you think we could see a Call of Duty that is not annual, but rather we get a Call of Duty that comes out, and then the following year you keep that core game, but then you just buy a $40 expansion that gives you a new campaign and new multiplayer suite. It's kind of part of that overall overarching Call of Duty game. Battlefield or Halo or any of those big shooter titles could be treated the same way if you think about it. I don't know if we'll get to a point like that.
I think it'll depend on if we run out of wars to make games out of. I think we need a proper Vietnam game from the Call of Duty series. Battlefield did a pretty good job with it, but I don't know. There's so much money to be made, and now you have like 3 different studios working on Call of Duty. There's who knows what they're working on right now, but they're in deep development right now on the upcoming one for 2018 of the fall. But I don't know. I could see some other stuff. I don't see Battlefield and Call of Duty doing that anytime in the near future until they run out of ideas, and they might consider doing that, because we've already started seeing a little bit of it with remasters and kind of some stuff coming back up for that. Just buy this game and then you get a remaster of this one. But I think they need to run out of ideas before they do that, personally.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to see that anytime soon. It was just an interesting kind of thought. Forza could be thought of the same way, but I think with a game like Forza, with a game like some of the sports games, people usually make the argument that, well, you can upgrade the rosters and upgrade some features, but there are kind of physics and fundamental engine changes that occur in those games as well that you can't really just change with an expansion. So there's a deeper development process there that people, I don't think of sometimes. So
I could, and now you mention it like that, I think I could see more of that in sports games. Like, that's what they should be to begin with. When we talk with Jordan all the time, he talks about the latest roster update's going to cost you $60.
Yeah,
that might be something that they consider. Maybe I don't know. I don't know. They make so much money every year with FIFA, Madden, and all those that it doesn't really make sense to do subscription. But I'd like to see what they spend in making a Madden or a FIFA, because like we've seen in NHL, I mean, you can't really tell me that this past year on some of those games that they really spent, millions and millions and millions to do almost nothing on it. I mean, there's no new engine on any of those games or anything. So
Yeah.
I don't know, but I could see that becoming a subscription service. I mean, for that exact reason, we have the new teams here now. We have the newest jerseys or something. Spend $20 and get the whole new roster or something with new stadiums. I mean, that's all you need to do, but I don't know. I have to see the numbers before I can comment further on it.
Yeah. Obviously, the companies are doing what they do for a reason.
Yep.
All right, so we'll close that one out. I thought it would be something interesting for us to touch on here during this Bitcast, and I think it's going to be a growing topic, and I think we may come back to this next year, maybe as a conversation point, and dedicate an entire episode to it, because I think we're just going to see this evolve as the industry evolves and grows. All right, so let's move on to one of our more of our favorite sections here. So let's talk about some collectibles and some classic games we've been playing. So on the collectibles front, Bert, you got anything you want to talk about this Bitcast?
Yeah, I have a few things. I do a lot of limited run game stuff, and I did get the Yeast Origin Collector's Edition. However, I have to send this one back. I don't know if you can see it very well, but this was damaged in shipping, and my whole box was bent in here.
Oh, man.
And I tend to display these, so I wanted it mint, and so I do have a replacement copy that I have to send this one back on, I guess, Tuesday now, because, yes, we still celebrate Columbus Day in this country. So the Postal Service is closed. So once they get this, they'll send me a new one, and I can open it and see the contents. But this is the PS4 version, Collector's Edition. So I was pretty excited about this one. And I also have the PAX Collector's Edition coming, which is just the game. It's not a whole thing like this. So kind of sad to see this one damaged when I got it. I did get the SNES Classic. I have yet to open it because I'm waiting for the Japanese one, or I guess UE one, to get to me so I can open them at the same time. But biggest thing here is it's super tiny. I mean, gosh, doesn't weigh anything. But it weighs, sorry, it's not size, but it weighs a lot, which is kind of funny. Last thing is, for some reason, I've been on an amiibo craze. So I've been picking these I've been picking these things up like crazy. When I see them, if they're under $7 and it's a character that I like, I just buy it. And so you got to be on eBay. Take it easy over there. You got to be on eBay, and you see these for $6 shipped. Oh man, I'm getting it just from a collector's thing, because these are a lot more. I like these more than the Pops, and so they're super high detail, and I like them a lot. So I got Dr. Mario and Bowser. And
Bowser's cool. Do you have a DK?
I don't yet. I haven't seen that one cheap, but for the ones I really want are the new Samus ones from Metroid, and those things disappear like in 2 seconds from the GameStop. You're not going to see that anywhere falling in price. But I did get Cloud from Final Fantasy a few weeks ago. I know he's one of your favorite characters from your favorite Final
Waste of time. Send it back.
And I also got Bayonetta, which is cool.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, so they're kind of fun to get. But that's all I've got. I mean, I've got a lot of software recently, but I don't really consider that collectible in my sense. So how about you? What did you got?
Yeah, no, the Metroid one I saw. I like the one where it's actually the Metroid on like the broken tube.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that one looks really cool.
Well, you actually saw that one at a store?
Yeah.
Damn it, those are like really hard to find right now.
Oh, I didn't know. Yeah. If I see one, are you looking?
Kind of. They make a 2-pack right now where you can get the Metroid and Samus together.
Yeah, so that's the one I saw.
Wow, you need to pick that up next time, because it's really hard to find, and they can sell for about $40 to $50 on eBay right now. But I think Amazon had a crazy deal for both of them for like $25, and then GameStop will sell them for about $20 for the two of them if you can get them. Okay, but they're really hard to find. So, yep.
Fortunately, I'm not collecting the damn thing. So,
yeah. You don't know, now you know.
All right, so we were going to talk about the same thing, right? So I was fortunate enough to, when the Super Nintendo Classic got announced, I went on to some of the European sites because I wanted the kind of the Famicom version. The difference being that the unit itself is, looks like the Famicom, and then the controllers, which I prefer greatly, have the colored buttons. It's all the same games. It all plugs in the same way. All the interface is the same. It's really just the colored buttons on the controllers and the different look of the console. So I got the European Super Nintendo Classic Mini, and it's really, really neat. I did open mine because my son was playing it earlier, and so as you can see how big it is here in my hand, It's tiny, and you can also see how that's different from the American one. And it's really neat. I have the same complaint as the original, is that I wish that the cord for the controllers was longer. It makes no sense why they're still so short. And but other than that, it's a blast, and I think that going to be getting a lot of play out of it. So other than that, yours is on the way. So I was fortunate enough to get two. So one was shipped off to Bert earlier today, actually. So we're both going to have a copy of this soon. Yep. But that's about it from the collectible standpoint. I didn't even feel like bringing them on because they're really minor, but I did get, I've been collecting everything Cuphead, if you couldn't tell. And I got some enamel pins for Cuphead that were exclusive to New York Comic-Con last year, or San Diego Comic-Con, excuse me. So that can't speak all of a sudden. So that was pretty cool. But
yeah, it's funny you talk about the cords, because if you think about it, the NES Mini or Classic was 1.5 feet shorter than the SNES Classic. So I have no idea what Nintendo's thinking. You can't tell me cords are too expensive to extend another foot or longer than that. The original SNES cord is longer than the Classic one.
Yeah, it is. It is. I have the original SNES right over there, and it makes no sense. I swear, we've talked about this so many times. I swear, there's someone at Nintendo who makes these decisions. It's like they get everything right, and it's like, let's just make the cord 4 feet just to see what everyone says. They're like the biggest trolls ever. It doesn't make any sense at all. It's an $80 unit. There's nothing in it but a ROM. You know what I mean? It would have cost them another 20-30 cents per cord to just make it 10 feet. It's baffling to me, but
10 feet's a little long now. Come on now.
10 feet. but no, yeah.
That's what the Duke controller is going to be. It's going to be or 9 feet or 10 feet.
Right.
TVs are bigger nowadays.
Yeah. Now our quest is to get the Super Famicom from Japan Mini.
The Japanese one. I should have ordered that when they launched, but hopefully, if Nintendo's being honest about how many they're producing, we will see it. The funniest thing about this actually is that I got 2 of these from England, international shipping, before I got my SNES Classics, the American ones, from Amazon. I still haven't gotten those. They're just sitting there as not shipped. So it doesn't make any. And I ordered them. I mean, I was on there the first probably 5 minutes that they went up. So it's ridiculous.
And that stupid exchange rate.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so for people watching, if you do order one of these, it was still £80 in England, which equated to about $115, $120. So they are a little more expensive if you want to get this one. All right, so let's go to our favorite topic, and I'll let you intro it. So let's talk about some classic games.
All right, so our season reflections is back. And so about 4 reflections ago, I had Super Mario RPG as mine. And now that we have our SNES Minis and Classic, you can play it again because it is one of the games that does come along with this. So it shows up right here in this tiny little corner, as you can see, is one. So if you never got to play it, you have to play it. But a successor to that, because after that, Square and Nintendo didn't keep their relationship going to make another game. They did have one that came out on the 64 that was considered the Paper Mario series. My game is Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. Now, this one is amazing on the GameCube if you can find it. These do go for a little bit more, and these are probably north of $50 now on eBay if you can find one. It was one of the games that you could do progressive scan on and have a nicer picture. The gameplay is still very much like Super Mario RPG, to where it is turn-based. Now, there is a lot more. You can go 2D, and then it moves back to 3D. But the story, the art style, it's a very different Mario game than your typical Marios, whether it be Mario Galaxy or Mario Sunshine. It's not a platformer in that sense. This is more of an RPG. And if you follow along with that, I also have Super Paper Mario that came out for the Wii. And that did succeed into what is out for the Wii U right now, called Paper Mario Color Splash. I don't have that one. I want to get it. It's actually one of the games that I want to get before Wii U games are impossible to find. But yeah, back to my original season reflection. If you can find this one for under $50, try to pick it up and play it. They're still playable on the Wii if you have a Wii, because of the backwards compatibility. They were obviously designed for the GameCube. If you have a GameCube, you should try to pick one up. But that's my season reflection for this game. It was an amazing game back in the day. It still is to me. It's still very playable today.
Nice. Yeah, I'm kind of jealous. I don't have any of the Paper Mario games, or Super Mario RPG, which is the golden one you won, right, for the Super Nintendo. But I think you sent me a link early this year for Color Splash for Wii U for like $25, and you were like, buy it, and neither of us did, right? Like I don't know, I don't know what we were thinking.
Yep.
So. Okay, so for mine, I don't actually have the physical copy, which saddens me because I did own it when I was younger. But again, in honor of the Super Nintendo Classic, my game this week, or this Bitcast, is Final Fantasy III. So it was Super Nintendo. It was right in that heart of when Squaresoft was kind of king of the Japanese RPGs back then. And Final Fantasy II for the Super Nintendo was one of my favorite games of all time. It's still up there. Final Fantasy III came out, and it I don't know if I consider it better, but it did some things that even Final Fantasy II didn't, and it was just a tremendous, tremendous game. So if you're playing it now, it obviously has some of the faults of the old Japanese RPG games, which is it's all turn-based and you kind of just get random battles, so it can take you a long time to get places. But the writing on it, the story, some of the things they did back in the 16-bit era for those games was just amazing. The story is always long and emotional, and it was really tremendous to see what Squaresoft and those developers made back in the day, because with that technology you really couldn't do a whole lot in terms of cutscenes or anything else, but yet they still hold up really well, and they're some of my favorite games to go back to. So if you can find a copy for Super Nintendo, you're looking at a lot of money, especially if it's complete. Like I said, it just saddens me because I used to have all those games and sold them off over time. But the nice thing, of course, is Super Nintendo Classic. You can now play it. So if you haven't played that and you do like Japanese role-playing games, or you grew up with some of those games, absolutely play it. It's considered one of the best ever. There are some people who still consider it the best Final Fantasy, even, here you are 20, 25 years later. I'd put it up there. I think it's probably one of my top 2 or 3 Final Fantasies ever. So, yeah, it's great. So definitely check it out if you never did.
Yeah, other places that I remember you could actually get the game as well, if the Nintendo consoles, or if you don't find a hard copy of it anywhere, are the PSP. So if you're a Sony guy and you have a PSP, you could still play it there. You could also find it on the Wii U Virtual Console. Those were some other places you could find it, but I played a little bit of it back in the day on the PSP, believe it or not. I was in the Philippines working, and I was able to get a ROM for it on their black market area. But, it was kind of weird because they had it, and it was like, you got to try this one, and I played it on my PSP, and it was it's awesome. So I'm glad we can finally play it on the SNES Mini. So
yeah, and I think I don't know, was it one of the ones included on the PS1 Classic when they did the anthologies? I can't remember.
I don't remember that. I know you could get it on the PlayStation Store, but I don't remember it on the anthologies, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah, I know 2 was on there, and of course they're numbered differently in Japan, right? So I think they were 5 and 6, or 4 and 6, something.
There was one other place that I know you probably are going to download it for, is on the Ouya. You could definitely play it on the Ouya.
The last time I thought about that console, I think, was when I saw it on clearance in Target. So I guess that one didn't work out how they had hoped.
I kind of want to pick one up at a garage sale just for like $5, just for the heck of it.
May as well have it. Yeah, it'll probably be worth something in the future because probably so few of them sold, right?
Yeah.
So that's usually what happens.
Or not. It may not be worth nothing ever. There's a strong chance.
Just a little black box.
Yep.
All right, so I think let's go ahead and close it out here. Another episode in the books. I think if you're looking for some of the things we've published recently, like I said, my Cuphead review is up on the site. I did a written review only for Cuphead, which I explain on the article. So if you want to check that out, it's got a lot of some of my clips and some of the artwork, though, you can check out. Bert put up a what's releasing in October video, which is obviously a big month of the year, maybe the biggest. So that's up on the site as well if you want to check that out and get caught up to date on what's coming in the next few weeks. And then, as always, we just want to say thank you for the people who listen and watch, and please subscribe and like or rate us on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, and we're happy to hear your feedback or comments. And then just lastly, I just want to comment again to apologize for the video quality and some of the audio hiccups we had. Google is quite frankly being a son of a bitch today. So we'll get through it, and hopefully next Bitcast we're in a lot better shape. So, what do you want to close out with, Bert?
No, that's it, guys. Hopefully, we have a new SG conversation coming in the near future before next Bitcast, but we'll see. And hopefully, I have some comparisons on past Forza games. So I've been putting together some video on the Forzas that have come out on Xbox One, not before that, but just to kind of give comparisons as to what's actually changed. Did kind of something similar to that with our F1 series stuff. So hopefully to do it with the Forza series, so you can see. If you haven't played it, must play it. But as Ainsley said, thanks for listening to us, guys, and catch us on the next one.
Yep. Thanks again, everyone, and go play Cuphead.